So, check this out, people. A few months ago, I made a video on why black people don't succeed in the US, right? It's funny how you have these Democrats, for example, right, who have fed us the notion that we are, and I'm Puerto Rican, by the way, right? But how these Democrats have made us believe that we can't do anything without D.E.I, right? We can't function and be like them and do the same things they do because we need special privileges because we're not smart enough. This is why they have to lower the standards for tests to get into college. Now they want to eliminate the bar exam so that black people and minorities can become lawyers. Why do they do that? Why is it that all of a sudden, after so many years, right, where we have black doctors, black entertainers, black lawyers, right, they want us to believe that black people can't function without DEI or minorities. When I say black, I mean Puerto Ricans, Chinese, and what have you, right? And so instead of mentioning all these races, I'm just going to say black. And I know this is going to offend a lot of people, but I don't care. The fact is that everything that I'm saying is true. Everything. The problem with people is that they don't want to hear the truth. This is why blacks are set back so far, right? The fact that the majority of black people don't have a father in their life. That's one of the main reasons why there's so much crime, and the fact that blacks are the minority back home in the US and they commit the most crimes. And don't tell me that blacks are being locked up because they're black, because that's a bunch of bullshit, okay? If you watch the TV, if you watch the news, everywhere you go, it's the black people who are committing the most crimes, who are misbehaving. You can't go to a movie theater without a group of black people or black kids sitting there acting stupid, fucking it up for everybody else. And then you get jumped if you say something. It's always the same thing. And then blacks wonder why the majority of people, it doesn't matter if they're Puerto Rican, it doesn't matter if they're white, it doesn't matter if they're Indian or Chinese, don't want to fuck with black people. It's not a racist thing. It's a fact that the majority of blacks don't know how to fucking act. And because they don't know how to act, they want to blame society for why society doesn't want to fuck with them. Why nobody wants to rent to them. Because when you rent to a black person, and this isn't every black person, but let's keep it real. The majority of the times, if you rent a place to a black person, there's going to be loud music, smoke from marijuana. Now, don't get me wrong, because I like loud music, and I also like to smoke. But the fact is that every time there's a holdup in a store, every time there's a carjacking, every time there's people are getting jumped, or you go to the movies, or you go somewhere, there's always an issue, and it's always black people. Don't get me wrong, people. Black people aren't just attacking whites or Puerto Ricans. Now, Puerto Ricans don't have to sweat it when it comes to blacks because we don't fuck with each other. We know to draw that line. We know that if a black hurts a Puerto Rican, he's going to get jumped, and vice versa. Now, when I talk about blacks misbehaving, I'm not talking about how they're misbehaving against whites or against other races. Black people misbehave amongst each other. And that's the problem. You can't have a group of black people, 5 sit on one side and the other 5 on the other side, without there being a war within a few minutes. For no reason at all. Somebody's just got to look at you hard because they don't like the clothes you're wearing, because you think you're bad, because they don't like the way you walk. Oh, he thinks he's bad because look at him, look at how he walks. There's always some bullshit with black people. Always. Now, it's no different with Puerto Ricans. You put a group of Puerto Ricans together, you put 5 Puerto Ricans together, it's only a matter of time before there's a fight. This is why when I walk by myself. When I would go to the clubs, I would go to the club by myself. Because I'm not stupid. If I get stepped on by someone, I'm going to say, hey, my man, excuse me. If his foot is on me. Now, if he just steps on me and keeps it moving, I'm going to keep it moving. It's a fucking club. That's what happens. You're going to get stepped on. But let a brother get stepped on and someone not say anything. The fact that he's in a club with 400 other people who are dancing, who are moving around, he doesn't understand the fact that he's going to get stepped on. And he's got to cause a fight. And I'm not just making this shit up. I'm not just making this up, so for those who don't like it, that's too bad. But what I'm saying are facts. And so, if I go to a club, I'm going to go by myself. Because I'm not going to get into a fight. I'm not. But if I'm with 5 other Puerto Ricans or 2 or 3 other Puerto Ricans, it's only a matter of time before there's one idiot who's going to start something because he knows he's not alone. And so he's got to start some shit and get me into some nonsense that I'm not ready to get into because I don't roll like that. So it's not much different, people. Now, blacks have been saying that they've been held down, and they're always bringing up this bullshit about slavery as if though any one of these motherfuckers have been slaves or their parents were slaves. None of these people were slaves. None of their parents were slaves. They have no idea what it means to pick cotton. They have no idea what it means to work hard, as a matter of fact. That's not to say that black people don't work hard. There are a lot of hard-working black people. And just like there are a lot of hard-working Puerto Ricans, there are a lot of bum Puerto Ricans. It's the same thing. A lot of Puerto Ricans are raised without a father. But the difference between the blacks and the Puerto Ricans is that when we live in a community, we get together and we work together. We don't envy each other over stupidity and nonsense. And then blame the white man for the reason why we're down. And there's nothing worse than hearing a black person who's soft, who's weak, who's a beta male, constantly bitch about slavery as if though he knows what the fuck that means. As if though Puerto Ricans weren't slaves. As if though Haitians weren't slaves. As if though Jamaicans weren't slaves. As if though Mexicans weren't slaves. The only one riding the slave train are the blacks. The native blacks from the U.S. Because Dominicans come to the U.S. and they're just as black, if not blacker, than the blacks, because the black race in America has been lightening itself as the years go by. Black Americans are becoming lighter and lighter and lighter because they don't want to be black. And so they marry into the white race to have lighter skinned children. And then those children don't want to get with a black man. They want to get with someone who's mixed race or who's light skinned. And the majority of blacks who are black in the U.S. today aren't native blacks. I'll give you a perfect example about the nonsense that these native blacks from the U.S. are constantly bitching about slavery, how the white man has them down, and how they can't grow, or how they can't get a job, or how they can't prosper, or how they can't open a business. There's always some bullshit from these beta-ass, weak black men. Because Dominicans are blacker than the native blacks, and when they come to the U.S., and I'm talking about what I know, okay, because I'm from the Bronx. And these Dominicans come to the Bronx and they own taxi cab companies. They own salons. They own restaurants. They own grocery stores. These Dominicans who are blacker than the native blacks from the US come here and they prosper and they don't bitch about being slaves. They don't bitch about their ancestors being slaves and reparations and all this bullshit. It's bad enough that we have welfare, which is a form of reparations. Because with welfare, you get cash, you get food stamps, you get medical, you get dental, you get Section 8, you get a bunch of shit for free. And because of it, you don't grow. Because of it, fathers don't stay with their mothers because the mother is depending on the welfare system to keep them going. And if they have a man in the house, they can't have welfare. And that's a form of reparations. And look at what it's done to the black people. Look at what it's done to the minorities. Because the woman knows that if she has a man in the house, she's going to lose her welfare, her reparations, which is all free for everyone who is low income or a minority, because the majority of people who are minority are either on welfare, or want reparations. They don't want a job. And so here we are with this administration, this Biden administration, where now we got this stupid, the dumbest vice president in the history of the world, who is now running for president, who is pushing this stupidity, this nonsense about DEI, because she, even though she's made it as a vice president, she doesn't believe that black people can make it the same way she made it. By the way, she made it because of DEI, not because she was smart. And you have a lot of smart people out here. You got a lot of smart women, a lot of black smart women, and look at who they choose to run for president or vice president. The dumbest person I've ever seen in my fucking life. And now, because she was picked due to DEI, she wants to pass it on to the next generation and fuck it up for people to make it easier for them to fail a test, because they know because of DEI they're going to get the job. Not because they know what they're doing, not because they qualify, not because they passed the bar exam that they want to now eliminate, because they don't believe that minorities are smart enough to pass the bar exam. Can you believe that bullshit? When there are lawyers in the Dominican Republic, when there are lawyers in Africa, when there are lawyers in China, Japan, everywhere in the world, but yet lawyers back home in the US, minorities, can't pass the bar exam as far as the government is concerned, or at least this administration is concerned. And so you have these native blacks who are constantly blaming everybody for why they don't make it. They just sit back. No white man has ever kept me down, ever. I was a graphic artist in New York for many years. I was making more money than most people who went to college, and my highest school grade that I finished was the 6th grade. The 6th grade, and I was making more money than most white people. That's why I was able to retire early, because I was able to put into the system from the age of 13 all the way up until my 40s. And by the time I was 18, like I said, I was making more money than most white people. I worked along white people. As a matter of fact, a Jewish man took me under his wing and taught me everything I know. Claude Thompson was his name. And so you have these idiots who don't have a life, who want to blame everything on everyone else for their downfall, for the fact that they don't want to get an education. They don't go to school and they blame the white man. They don't get a job and then they blame the white man. I never had a problem applying for a job. And every time I applied for a job, 99% of the time, I got the job because I know how to talk. I may speak with an accent because I'm from the Bronx. But when it comes to applying for work and dealing with people on a one-on-one basis in a professional manner, I know what I'm doing and what I'm saying. And they're going to hire me based on what I know, not my skin color, not because I'm unfortunate or misfortuned or because I'm dark skinned. No, but because I know what the fuck I'm doing. And you have this nonsense that I actually used to believe that the white man had me down. I believed it. I believed the same bullshit that the white man had the good jobs, as if though I can't become a lawyer if I wanted to, or a doctor. Hell, my doctor back home in the US, Dr. Forston, is black. The majority of my doctors back home were female, women. You think they didn't make it through high school or through college? They did it because they went to school, they educated themselves. The white man didn't keep them down, and man did not keep the women back so that they can't make it. This is bullshit. This DEI nonsense that's killing our people because they're giving us a free pass to fail. They are saying it's okay for you to fail. We're going to give you the job anyway. It's okay for you to fail your pilot's test. We're going to let you fly a plane anyway so you could kill everybody on the plane. You know, I got a friend back home in the US. He's Puerto Rican, and he's always talking about racism, how the white man this and the white man that. Yet, he drives a fancy car, he goes home to his 50-inch screen TV, and he lives better than most people. And that's ironic to me, how you got these idiots who are constantly talking about racism, and yet they live better than most white people, as if the white people don't live in trailer homes. As if white people are not on welfare and don't go hungry in the same way that every poor black and Puerto Rican do. As if though we blacks and Puerto Ricans aren't as successful as whites. And so you have this guy, right, who's constantly talking about racism. And I asked him this question, right? Because they're always talking about how the white man this and the white man that, right? The fact is that if the white man makes it, it's because the white man usually has a mother and father who pays for their children's tuitions to go to college and to live good. And the father's there to see that he makes it through pilot school, to see that he passes the bar exam, that he makes it through college. And we have to figure it out on our own because the majority of the times we don't have a father. Whose fault is that? The women's fault. They want to open their legs, get pregnant by some bum that they just met yesterday. And this is a fact. I'm just telling it to you like it is. And then when the guy doesn't stay, they want to bitch and complain. When they just slept with some dude they just met the other day, 3 months ago. No condom, no birth control, open their legs and expects him to do for her what he never intended to do. All he wanted to do was smash. He smashed you and then he dashed. That's your fault. He knocked and you let him in. Next time, close your legs. The majority of blacks and Puerto Ricans are so caught up in this bullshit that they don't have the common sense to protect themselves. And so I asked my friend this question, the one who's always talking about racism and how the white man this and the white man that. I asked him this question. I said to him, if there were two pilots, there's a white pilot and there's a black pilot, who would you fly with? Who would you get on the plane with? And he said, the black pilot. And I asked him why. And he said, because he's black, right? Because he's black. He wants to stand with the blacks. He wants to support black businesses and black people. I asked him this question. Aren't you concerned with who can fly the plane? How about you fly with the one who has the most experience? Whether it be the black guy or the white guy, how about you fly with the guy who has the most flight hours? The one who has the most experience. You think I'm going to get on a plane with some dude who's Puerto Rican just so that I can support my people? Is he going to support me while the plane is going down? See the stupidity? Rather than flying with the one who has the most experience, the one who knows what the fuck he's doing, the one who actually passed his flight exam, he didn't get hired because of DEI. He didn't get hired because of giving people a chance because of the color of their skin or because they're male or female. He can fly the plane because he put in the time. He put in the time. I don't give a fuck who you are. If you're a black doctor, if you're a white doctor, if you're a Chinese doctor. I want the doctor with the most experience. I want the doctor to deliver my wife's child who has the most experience. Not the black guy, not the Chinese guy, not the white guy. Give me the one who knows what the fuck he's doing. Instead, in this day and age today, we want to hire blacks because they don't have the opportunity. We want them to fuck up Walgreens, Walmart, and all of these pharmacies and all of these places back home in the U.S. Let them go in and steal and take whatever they want. The police can't do nothing. Security can't do nothing. Just let them take it as long as it's under $1,000. Fuck it. Why? Because they are unfortunate. They're unfortunate. Incentivizing us to steal. Incentivizing us not to get an education. Not to do it the way it was meant to be done. The way everyone else is doing it, we want to keep the black man down. This is where we're being kept down. DEI, this is why we're being kept down. DEI might as well be D-I-E, die. Because that's what they're doing. They're killing us. They don't want us to get educated. They don't want us to do it the hard way, the way they're doing it. They want us to depend on AI so that our brains could shut down. They want us to depend on others to hire us based on our skin color or on our race or whether or not we're man or woman. That's why the vice president was hired. As if though there aren't smart women who could have made it there. Hell, there was a woman who spoke last month at the Trump rally, a black woman. I've never heard a woman talk that way. I'm surprised she wasn't the presidential pick or the vice presidential pick for this year. Because there are people who are educated, but yet they are picking people based on the color of their skin or based on whether or not they're a man and a woman. Women talking about they don't make what men make. How about you become a plumber, lady? Or work in the sewers like men do? Or on high rises hanging from a 120-story building, putting the scaffolding together. But yet you want to make what a man makes, right? You just want it that way for free. You don't want to earn it. You don't want to make it. You just want to take it. You see the nonsense and the stupidity that they're feeding us back home in the U.S.? You got Jamaicans who come to the U.S. and thrive. You got Haitians who come to the U.S. and thrive. You got Mexicans especially who come to the U.S. and thrive. Is it because the white man is giving the Mexican a break, the Jamaican a break, the Haitian a break, but is putting the native blacks down? When the native blacks have the same right to the same education as the white man, the same colleges if they want to. As if though Puerto Ricans weren't held down for 500 years under Spanish rule. You never hear Puerto Ricans say the white man got me down. The white man owes me this. Reparations, they took our land. We are no different than the Native Americans. Puerto Ricans are an indigenous people. We don't give a fuck about what was done 500 years ago. We live here today. We have to make it today, not yesterday. And blacks today in the U.S., Native blacks are always bitching and complaining about what was done, not to them, not to their parents, but to their grandparents and their ancestors who put in the hard work and who aren't bitching and complaining about reparations. They want a free ride. And hell, how the fuck are they going to give blacks reparations when they can't even determine whether you're a native black or if you came here 50 years ago from Jamaica or from Africa 20 years ago and had children who were born here who are black and who were never slaves. Now America has to pick and determine who's a native black and who just got here yesterday. You see the stupidity and the nonsense that they have us believing back home? The reason why blacks can't make it in the U.S. is because they're still harping on that nonsense about slavery. Get the fuck over that bullshit already. That's a bunch of fucking nonsense. Grow the fuck up, people. Grow up. Jamaicans were slaves. Haitians, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, all of North America, all of the majority of South America under Spanish rule for hundreds of years. Up until 17-something, Puerto Ricans were free from Spanish rule by the U.S. Just recently. And hell, 200 and something years ago is recent. That's like 4 generations. And nobody's bitching. I was a successful graphic artist back home in the U.S. I was a successful bounty hunter back home in the U.S. I made it. I did what I wanted to do. If I wanted to go to school, I'd go to school. If I didn't go, it's because I didn't want to. There are blacks who own homes. There are blacks who drive fancier cars than most white people. You know why? Because the black man believes that his status stands in the fancy car he drives. He'll put fancy wheels on his car before he gets his fucked up feet fixed by a podiatrist. He'll put a new grill on his car before he puts a new grill on his teeth and get his teeth fixed. Get his fucked up face fixed while driving a fancy car, smiling with fucked up teeth. You see the stupidity that these people are riding on? They blame everybody for their fucked up teeth, their fucked up feet, their fucked up health. Yet, they have a better car, a fancier car than the white man himself, because the white man is smart enough to know that his teeth matter more than his car, that his feet matter more than his car, and that his face matters more than his car. That paying the bills, that supporting his wife, supporting his children is more important than driving a fancy car. And so you got these black people, right? And again, actually, I'm not even going to put the Chinese in there, the Asians, because Asians make more money and are more educated back home in the U.S. than anyone. They're the most educated. And the fact that more crime is committed by blacks is so fucking crazy, right? And they say they can't make it. I'm going to tell you something. The Jews are a minority back home in the U.S. The Jewish people are a minority. And they have their own seminars, their own temples, their own streets, right? Because they live in a community. They work for each other, they buy from each other, they support each other, they go to school together, they come home to their homes together, they go to the temple together. And black people who are native to the U.S., the native blacks, can't live on the same block without killing each other, because more black people kill more black people than any other race in America. Any other. It's not white man killing the black man. It's not Puerto Ricans killing the black man. It's not Chinese killing the black man. It's the black man killing the black man. And then they wonder why nobody wants to rent to them. They wonder why nobody wants to fuck with them. They want to call it racism. The fact is, you don't know how to act. And nobody wants that bullshit around. I don't want it. I don't want it. And because I don't want it, if I have a choice to rent to a black person or a white person, I am going to rent to the white person. Not because he's white, but because he ain't black. Because if the Mexican was there, I'd also rent to the Mexican, the Chinese, the Indian. Because I know that when I come to collect my rent, they're not going to give me some bullshit excuse. I know that my apartment isn't going to be broke down and fucked up. I know that there isn't going to be loud music with a bunch of dudes smoking weed in my house, fighting and arguing with the neighbors, riding up in their loud ass cars at 4 o'clock in the morning. And so I have to pick and choose between two people, two races who have class. Which one of them do I believe has class? The black race that is always killing each other, or the white race who pays their bills on time, who have good credit, who pay their mortgage? And that's not to say they all do that, but let's just do the math. If the scales tip towards the white people, then it's the white people who do more good than bad. I'm not going to fuck with a people who is constantly killing each other. You want to call it racism? I don't give a fuck. I don't want you around if you ain't got no class. My daughter's half black, my youngest. She looks Puerto Rican. I remember one day they asked her what her race was, right? And she says, I'm half black, half white, and my father's Puerto Rican. I thought that was so cute. Why did I think it was cute? Because when my daughter was born, I was there. I was there. Her mother is half black and half white. And her mother was going to give her child away for adoption. She was going to give the baby away for adoption. And I was with her from the time she was about 3 or 4 months pregnant up until she was going to give the baby up for adoption. And when the baby was born, the doctor gave me the baby. This kid looked up at me and she smiled immediately from the time she was born. And because her mother already had it in her mind that she didn't want the baby, that she was going to give it up. From the time the baby was born up until she was 6 months, her mother was very abusive towards the baby. She didn't want to care for it. She didn't want to tend to it. She didn't want nothing to do with it. And because I was there when the baby would cry at night and the mother wouldn't tend to her, I would take the baby, put her on my chest, and lay down until the baby fell asleep. And I did that for 6 months straight. When I would leave the house, I would pack the baby and take her with me because I didn't want to leave her in the house with her mother. Because her mother didn't want her. She had her mind made up that she did not want the baby. And it showed. She did not like the baby. She did not love the baby. She did not care for her. When it was time to give the baby up, after 6 months, she showed me 2 pictures of 2 families that she wanted to give the baby to. A biracial family, half black, half white, just like her. And I didn't want to get involved. What was I going to do? Choose what family to give the baby away to? She's 6 months. I've been around her all that time. I didn't want to get involved. And so one day she brought her to my house. There was a knock on the door. I opened the door. And there she is with the baby, right? And she puts the baby down on the floor. And my bed, my mattress was on the floor. I don't like bed frames. I like my box spring and my mattress on the floor. It's more solid that way. And so she sets the baby on the floor. And I go and I lay down on my bed. And when I lay down on the bed, I'm just sitting there laying there watching TV. I didn't want to get attached to the baby. I was already attached. I had to let her go. And while I was laying there, the baby crawled onto the bed. She crawled onto my chest and she lay down. Because she knew me. She knew who I was. And because of that moment, me knowing that she knew me and who I was, and every time she saw me, she smiled and she started kicking and getting all excited for me to take her out of the crib or to take her out of her car seat. Because at that moment, I knew then that I couldn't let her go. And so I said to her mother, I said, listen, if you keep the baby, I promise that no matter what happens, I will always be there. I will always be there. No matter what happens between you and me, I will always be here. I promise. And for 23 years, I was part of that little girl's life. And she lived with me the majority of the time. And before I came to live in the Philippines, my daughter, who I supported, who lived with me, who stayed with me, who I took to school every morning and picked up, who I drove to college and picked her up before I went right back to work, just had a baby 2 years ago. And at age 23, she left the house, a grown woman. She's half black, half white. And the reason why she is successful today is not because she's half black or half white, or because she's black or because she's white, but because she had a father in her life who stood by her, who took care of her, who protected her, who taught her how to be a woman, how to be a lady, who taught her that a woman doesn't take out the trash, that the man takes out the trash, that if you got a man at home, he needs to take out the garbage, not you. And that's the problem with blacks and minorities today. They don't have an interested father who's interested in them, who's interested in being a father to their children. That's the problem, man. You black men need to step up and be fathers to your children. If you come inside a lady, be a man. Be a man. If you don't like her, if you don't want her, if she's not the woman you want to be with, then don't be with her. Get up every day, go knock on her door and say, let me get the baby. Like I did for my daughter, who isn't my blood, but who is my daughter. And if you ask her who her father is, she's going to tell you who her father is. Tanko is her father. I went with her to motor vehicle when she was 16 so that she can get her driver's permit because I wanted her to learn to drive. And so, because at that age they don't have a formal ID, in order to get their permit, she has to present her birth certificate, a letter or mail showing her current address, right, with her name on it. And she has to be there with a parent. A parent has to be with her. So of course I go with her because I'm her father. And when we get to the counter, the lady, my daughter, presents her birth certificate with all the other information required for her to get her permit. And the lady at the counter says, where's your father? Because I had to show ID also that I was her father. And the lady says, let me see your birth certificate. And when my daughter gives her birth certificate, she points to the name of the man on her birth certificate and she goes, who's that? And I got pissed. I said, excuse me, I'm her father. I raised her. She lives with me. I go to school with her for parent-teacher meetings. When she's sick, I'm the one who's there. For Christmas, holidays, and her birthdays, I'm the one who's there. I'm her father. And she said, excuse me for a minute. And she goes and she gets a supervisor. The supervisor comes back and she says, what's going on? I said, listen, I am her father. I raised her. I took care of her. I put in the time. It's me she lives with. It's me who raised her. And the lady, the supervisor, looks at the lady and says, let him sign. And she walks away. See, because that woman understood what it was I was saying. That lady understood what I meant when I said, I'm her father. There's a difference between you being the one who comes inside a woman And there's a difference between a man who wakes up every day and takes care of that child. And the problem with the black society back home in the US is that men don't know how to be men. They want to make excuses for it. They want to blame the white man for them not being fathers to their own children. They want to blame the white man for them not making it in life, not going to school, not getting a job, disrespecting their mother, their father, their neighbors, their friends, killing each other, but it's the white man who's doing it. And enough is enough. When are you going to grow up and stop the nonsense? You're falling behind the Dominicans, you're falling behind the Jamaicans, the Africans, you're falling behind the Mexicans, the Chinese, Puerto Ricans, you name it. You guys have the head start. You are native to the US. You are native blacks. The Jews make it. They have their own businesses. They cater to each other. When was the last time any black person walked into a black-owned grocery store? Because I've never seen one. A black-owned gas station, a black-owned convenience store, a black-owned supermarket. Hell, go to the Bronx, you're going to see a Dominican who's blacker than black who owns a Sloan's or an A&P supermarket, who owns a salon, a cab company, a restaurant, a convenience store. They're black people. And the white man ain't keeping them down. Native blacks, you got to get your shit together. If not, this administration in the future is going to look even worse for you. They're going to make it so that you yourself, it's bad enough now that with the opportunities to get an education, you don't get it. To get a good job, you don't get it. To blame the white man, that's what you do. Just imagine what it's going to be like when this administration, if Kamala becomes president of the US, with all of the nonsense she's going to implement for minorities that are going to dumb them down even more. That's going to make it easier for fathers not to be there for their children. For women to get pregnant and not care whether they get pregnant or not, because the welfare is going to take care of them. And the more babies they have, the more money they get. It's not an incentive, people. It's time that we open up our eyes and stop being fathers to our children and start being men to our women, and mothers to stop being irresponsible, to stop being hoes, to stop thinking that it's okay to have an abortion. You gotta be responsible. You gotta start growing the fuck up. The white man is gonna pass you by and it ain't his fault. He's just doing what he does to get by in life, just like you can do it. And if you don't do it, it's you. It's your fault. Ask a Dominican. Ask a Jamaican. Ask a Haitian and let him tell you whether or not America is racist or not.